Can you hear me? Good. Let's talk about voice. And I don't mean your singing voice, I mean voice in grammar. When it comes to grammar, voice is the direction that the action occurs within the sentence. That sounds a little confusing, doesn't it? Voice can be either active or passive based on the direction that the action is moving in the sentence. If you're scratching your head and saying, huh? Active and passive? What does that have to do with direction? Let's talk about it. Just wait, you'll see. Now you must remember there are two types of voice, active and passive. That's the first thing you must make sure you understand. Let's begin with active voice. With active voice, the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action. Take a look at this sentence. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta. Ooh, that looks delicious. Lucky English teacher. Now stay with me here. Remember that with active voice, the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action. Let's break this down piece by piece. Let's look at the sentence. My English teacher is the subject of the sentence, the doer of the action. Ate is the verb, the action. Some delicious pasta is the receiver, the object of the sentence. My English teacher is the subject of the sentence. My English teacher is the doer of the action. Now what's the action? The action is ate. That's what the English teacher did. My English teacher ate. And what did my English teacher eat? What's the receiver of the action? Some delicious pasta. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta is active voice. Why? Because the subject of the sentence, which is my English teacher, is the doer of the action ate. That's the verb of the sentence. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta. That's active voice. Now let's try it again. Just to remind you, with active voice, the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action. Now let's look at this sentence. The fireman quickly extinguished the roaring fire. Now let's break it down. The fireman is the subject, the doer of the action. What's the action? Quickly extinguished. That's the action. The fireman quickly extinguished. And the last part of the sentence is the receiver, the roaring fire. The fireman quickly extinguished the roaring fire. So here we are. The fireman quickly extinguished the roaring fire is active voice. Now let's look at the flip side. We're going to look at passive voice. You're probably thinking, hold up, what does direction have to do with any of this? Well, since you've asked, active voice moves from left to right. Let's take a look at the sentence that we were just talking about. The fireman quickly extinguished the roaring fire. Notice that the subject, the fireman, is at the beginning of the sentence. Quickly extinguished is the action that's next, and then the roaring fire, that's the receiver of the action. The direction of the action moves from left to right. Now let's try it again with the other sentence that we were looking at originally. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta. Notice that my English teacher, the subject, ate some delicious pasta. The direction is moving from left to right. That's active voice. Now, passive voice is going to be the opposite. The direction is going to move from right to left. Take a look at this sentence. Some delicious pasta was eaten by my English teacher. Now notice, at the beginning of the sentence we have some delicious pasta. The pasta is not doing anything. The pasta is the receiver. Who is the one that was eating the pasta? My English teacher. So notice that the direction is moving from right to left. This is passive voice. With passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. Now think about it. We're actually communicating the same message as the active voice sentence. It's just structured differently with passive voice. In this instance, the subject is some delicious pasta. The pasta is not the doer of the action. The action is was eaten. The pasta is not the one doing the eating. The pasta is the one being eaten. It's the receiver of the action. And then we end with by my English teacher. Now, even though the English teacher is the one eating the pasta, the English teacher is not the subject of the sentence. Remember that the subject of this passive voice sentence is going to be some delicious pasta. So our passive voice sentence is some delicious pasta was eaten by my English teacher. The action is moving from right to left because the subject of the sentence is the receiver of the action. Now let's look at the same idea communicated through active voice. My English teacher ate some delicious pasta. In this instance, the subject of the sentence, my English teacher, is the doer of the action. The action is moving from left to right. With the passive voice sentence, the action moves from right to left. Some delicious pasta was eaten by my English teacher. The subject is the receiver. Let's revisit the other sentence. The fireman quickly extinguished the roaring fire. In this sentence, the fireman is the subject of the sentence. The subject is also the doer of the action. The fireman, doer of the action, quickly extinguished. When the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action, then you have active voice, just like in this sentence. With this active voice sentence, the action is moving from left to right. The fireman is the doer of the action, quickly extinguished. Now let's look at the same idea in passive voice. The roaring fire was quickly extinguished by the fireman. Now notice the subject of the sentence, the roaring fire, is not the doer of the action, was quickly extinguished. In fact, the roaring fire is the receiver of the action. The action actually moves from right to left. The roaring fire is the subject. Was quickly extinguished is the action. The subject, the roaring fire, is not the one doing the extinguishing. Who is the doer of the action? The fireman. By the fireman is at the end of the sentence, but it's actually the doer of the action. So this sentence, the roaring fire was quickly extinguished by the fireman, is passive voice. The action moves from right to left. The subject of the sentence, the roaring fire, is the receiver of the action. Now time for some practice. The students were assigned a large amount of homework. Is this active or passive? This sentence is passive voice. Good job if you got it right. How about this one? The students completed the work on time. Is this active or passive? If you guessed active, you got it right. This is active voice. Here's another sentence for you to try. The instructor was given the work the next day. Is this active voice or passive voice? If you guessed passive voice, congratulations, you got it. Now I know that this one felt a little difficult because you don't know who gave the instructor the work, but remember, voice has to do with the relationship between the subject of the sentence and the verb of the sentence, the action. Good job on completing our little quiz. Now here's an important rule to remember. The best academic writing is straightforward. For your academic writing, it's best to use active voice. This doesn't mean that all of your writings, every sentence has to be in active voice at all times, but active voice is the most straightforward, the easiest to follow, and it's the best to use. Use passive voice sparingly. Are you wondering, why can't I use passive voice? I never said you can't use passive voice. You can use passive voice. Just remember to use passive voice purposefully and sparingly. For sentence variety, you can use passive voice, such as when the doer of the action is unknown. Look at this sentence. My car was stolen. We don't know who stole the car, so you could use passive voice. My car is the receiver of the action was stolen, not the doer. Here's another instance when you can use passive voice for sentence variety. When the receiver of the action is more important than the doer of the action. Take a look at this example. The president was interviewed by the journalists. In this sentence, the president is considered more important than the journalist, so the president is at the front of the sentence, is the subject of the sentence, but the president is the receiver of the action. This is an instance to use passive voice. Well, that about wraps it up for voice. I hope you could hear me. And I hope that it all made sense. Can you hear me?